Turkey's President Erdogan has said that he will refuse a ceasefire when it comes to our former Kurdish allies in northern Syria. These are individuals who helped to defeat ISIS, and they had been guarding tens of thousands of ISIS fighters in prisons there. Now they have abandoned those prisons because they need to defend their own lives following Trump's decision to abruptly pull out of Syria. Now, we had around 1,000 troops there. They were not there for a regime change war. In fact, they were put there specifically by the Trump administration in 2018 as a deterrent from Turkish aggression toward the Kurds. But obviously, with Trump pulling out, that area of Syria has now broken out into all-out war. And again, Erdogan has said, no ceasefire, no interest. Erdogan told reporters on a flight back from Azerbaijan that he told Trump that Turkey would not negotiate with a terrorist organization, referring to US-backed Kurdish militant groups operating in northern Syria. Now, as we've talked about before on the show, he's specifically referring to members of the PKK who are also Kurds, and they have done terrorist acts in Turkey, but that doesn't mean that the Kurds that we've allied with in northern Syria are the same group. They're not. Nonetheless, he sees them as a threat and he refuses a ceasefire. One other fascinating part of this was his reaction to a potential meeting with Vice President Mike Pence in Ankara, and here's how he responded to that.
The American delegation is coming here. Are you worried about it? Will you be seeing them?
Amerikan delegasyonu geliyor. Bunun için endişeli misiniz?
Yo, niye endişeli oluyor?
Why would we concerned about it?
What will you be saying to them?
Onlara neler diyeceksin?
Ben dimdik ayaktayım. Ben onlarla görüşmeyeceğim.
I'm standing. I'm not going to talk to them.
Onlar karşıtlarıyla görüşecek.
They will be talking their counterparts.
Ben Trump geldiği zaman konuşurum.
When Trump comes here, I'll be talking.
So he's sending his vice president to talk to Vice President Pence. That's what they mean by counterpart. He's like, if Trump comes here, I'll talk to him. If he doesn't, the vice presidents can talk to one another. Now in America, that's considered a big snub. Like, ooh, an inferior country will not have their leader meet with our vice president. Okay, I don't care about that part at all. So I don't think that's an interesting snub.
No, I agree with you. Like, I don't really care about the hurt feelings of Americans, but what I do care about is how Donald Trump always cowers to strongmen. So Erdogan says, get out, no, I'm not doing a ceasefire. No, I'm not gonna meet with the vice president. So he's a strongman. That's what Erdogan is, that's who he is. And when you meet Donald Trump, a known bully with strength, or in the way that Erdogan has responded to him, he cowers. And so he goes, and what he does immediately after that is trash the Kurds, who were our allies. So let's go to those videos. Here's Trump talking about how brilliant he is in pulling US troops out of that area, which have now threatened the lives of Kurdish allies who have helped us defeat ISIS.
So I view the situation on the Turkish border with Syria to be, for the United States, strategically brilliant. Our soldiers are out of there. Our soldiers are totally safe. They've got to work it out. Maybe they can do it without fighting. Syria is protecting the Kurds. That's good. We are, and by the way, every player hates ISIS, everybody we're talking about. So they can take care of ISIS. We have them captured. The United States captured them. Some were released just for effect, to make us look a little bit like, oh, gee, we got to get right back in there. So I think we're in a very strategically good position. I know the fake news doesn't make it look that way.
All right, so let's break that down. Who calls himself a brilliant strategist? I mean, we've gotten used to his insanity, but he has narcissistic personality disorder, and it's super obvious. If Obama had said about his Iraq withdrawal, that's because I'm a brilliant strategist and it's worked out brilliantly, everybody would have said this, what kind of crazy person is this? Who says that about themselves? But we've gotten used to Donald Trump being crazy. And then he says, oh, they released the ISIS prisoners just for effect. What are you talking about? Well, what? No, you don't really, like he said earlier, this part is correct, and he says it in a way that he just learned this. Oh, it turns out that everybody hates ISIS. Yes, ISIS attacks the Kurds, the Syrians, the Turks, the Americans, they attack everyone. Trump just figured that out the other day, apparently. Anyway, and then he turns around and goes, well, the Kurds released the ISIS for effect. Why would they do that? They spent They lost 11,000 soldiers fighting ISIS. Why would they let their worst enemies out for effect? And then he says, we captured ISIS. No, we didn't. Now, look, I think America did good work there, and we helped a lot with intelligence, and we were surprisingly effective, if you ask me, in helping the Kurds capture ISIS. But our own soldiers, the people on the ground, they called into places like Fox News and said, look, stop saying we fought side by side. We would give them intelligence and then we would withdraw. We were not supposed to engage in battle. The Kurds did all the fighting. They're the ones who captured ISIS.
That's right.
So what Trump said there is totally not true.
And so in the next two clips, he's gonna go ahead and trash the Kurds. Let's go to the first one.
I'm not going to get involved in a war between Turkey and Syria, especially when, if you look at the Kurds, and again, I say this with great respect, they're no angels. If you look at PKK, take a look at PKK. ISIS respects PKK. You know why? Because they're as tough or tougher than ISIS. You take a look at a lot of the things having to do, you have to say it, nobody wants to say it. We're making the Kurds look like they're angels. We paid a lot of money to the Kurds, tremendous amounts of money. We've given them massive fortunes. And you know what? It's wonderful. They fought with us, but we paid a lot for them to fight with us. But just so you understand, we were the ones that captured ISIS. People let some go. They opened a couple of doors to make us look as bad as possible.
So if I recall correctly, Donald Trump is the one who made the decision to send about 1,000 US troops to that area in 2018 to protect the Kurds, who he's now calling the PKK, which he just learned like yesterday. So he's pretending as if he's like knowledgeable on it. So did he send our troops to that area to protect terrorists? Is that what he's saying now? He's the one who made that decision, and they're not PKK. They were our allies who helped us defeat ISIS. I mean, it's amazing.
So look, I want to, it's super complicated. I want to be clear here. One thing that's offensive is this constant reference to the Kurds. There is no the Kurds. And I don't mean that in any derogatory way. I think there's, Kurds are an amazing people, etc. What I mean by that is there's different factions, as there are in any ethnicity, in any country, etc. So the PKK is a terrorist organization that does do attacks inside Turkey. Are some of them in northern Syria? Very likely. That is why Erdogan wants to go in there. That's among the reasons that he wants to go in there. Does that mean that all of the Kurds are PKK? No, that's preposterous and deeply offensive thing to say. And he says, oh, there's a thing called PKK, because he was on a call with Erdogan yesterday, and I'm sure Erdogan told him, so he's learned it for the first time, because our commander-in-chief's a moron and doesn't do any homework. So he's like, there's a thing called PKK, and the Kurds are worse terrorists than ISIS. No, don't say that. That's not remotely true. And by the way, it also, like now, let me give you the point of view you're also not getting in the mainstream press. So they now turn around and make it seem like, no, there is no actual terrorism inside Turkey, and PKK is no big deal. And the Turks, they keep saying the Turks are not our ally. That's also a very dangerous thing to say when they're the second largest army in NATO. In NATO, they're one of our top allies. Now, our allies are often a pain in the ass. Look at Saudi Arabia, they're a disaster. How much trouble has Israel gotten us into, right? And Turkey has gotten us into a lot of trouble. But yes, all three of those countries are still our allies. And yes, Turkey does have terrorism issues. Now imagine if you reverse it and it was the PKK was a terrorist Palestinian organization doing nonstop terrorist bombings inside of Israel. Would anybody say, oh, no big deal? Israel's our ally and they're getting hit by terrorism all the time, but who cares? We support the Palestinians and those are our true allies. And they did a hashtag like Nikki Haley did about Turkey, hashtag, that's a former ambassador to the UN for us. Hashtag Turkey is not our friend. Imagine if anyone had the temerity to write hashtag Israel is not our friend, right? And so, yes, there is terrorism strikes inside Turkey. That doesn't mean they should invade northern Syria. That doesn't make it better. In my opinion, it makes it significantly worse. And the Kurds are not a monolith. There's wonderful people who fought against ISIS and risked their lives and lost their lives fighting that battle, yes, for themselves, but also for us and for the whole world. And then we did betray those guys. But yes, there's also PKK within that mix.
So one final component to this story is Donald Trump's letter to Erdogan. It's from October 9th, and it just gives you a sense of how juvenile Donald Trump really is. Let me read you what it says verbatim. Dear Mr. President, let's work out a good deal. You don't want to be responsible for slaughtering thousands of people, and I don't want to be responsible for destroying the Turkish economy, and I will. I've already given you a little sample with respect to Pastor Brunson. By the way, he did implement some rather weak sanctions against Turkey, and Erdogan's response was laughter, essentially. He continues to say, I have worked hard to solve some of your problems. Don't let the world down. You can make a great deal. General Mazloum is willing to negotiate with you, and he is willing to make concessions that they would never have made in the past. I am confidentially enclosing a copy of his letter to me just received. This is the part that really stood out to me. History will look upon you favorably if you get this done the right and humane way. I will look upon you forever as the devil if good things don't happen. Don't be a tough guy. Don't be a fool. I will call you later. Sincerely, Donald Trump.
I will look on you as the devil? Now, come on, guys. 25th Amendment. What kind of lunatic
Totally.
writes that to a top NATO ally? Who would write that to anybody? Let alone a guy that not only is a top NATO ally. Okay, but now a lot of people are pissed at Turkey, even though they're an ally. Then why did you give them permission to go into northern Syria in the first place? So, yeah. God, he's so blindingly stupid. God, I can't take it anymore. It's driving me nuts that they're not acknowledging the most obvious thing in the world. The president is not mentally fit to lead. Clearly not mentally fit. Look, I'm gonna give you more quotes as quickly as I can. He says, if Turkey goes into Syria, that's between Turkey and Syria. It's not between Turkey and the United States like a lot of stupid people would like us to do, would like you to believe. Yes, I don't wanna be involved in that conflict overall either, but you actually had a safety zone that was working in surprisingly decent fashion in northern Syria. And the Turks were actually working with the Americans and the Kurds in that safety zone in northern Syria. Now, I know it was not to the satisfaction of the Turkish government, who thought there's still terrorist attacks from inside here, but overall it was relatively stable. You know what's happened now? Not only have we withdrawn, Syrian forces are entering now, saying, hey, Kurds, you wanna fight the Turks? We'll help you. Now that's helping Bashar al-Assad. Now he's doing an alliance with the Kurds when we had them separated. And then guess who else just came in? The Russians came in. And the Russian press put out a video of them in abandoned US barracks, gloating, it's now ours. And then they asked Trump about Russia, and he says, if Russia wants to get involved with Syria, that's really up to them. Okay, last one, he says, and I say, why are we protecting Syria's land? Assad's not a friend of ours, then why did you help him by getting rid of the safety zone? All right, anyway, he says, why are we protecting their land? And Syria also has a relationship with the Kurds, who by the way are no angels. Again, the Kurds are not a monolith, but I wanted to give that to you because he says, why are we protecting Syria's land? It's not about Syria. God, he's so unsophisticated. He doesn't know anything. That is northern Syria where the Kurds live. The Kurds are opposed to the Syrian government of Assad. Now in their desperation, they might actually make an alliance thanks to you, you idiot. Whereas, and you ask him and he's like, oh, what do you mean? It's Syrian land. Isn't that what Assad is in favor? No, Assad is not. He wasn't there. He wasn't there. He was there originally before the civil war began, but the Kurds, through blood, sweat, and tears, literally took that land and made it at least semi-autonomous. And now Assad's gonna get to roll right back into there because our president is an absolute moron who doesn't know anything about foreign policy and goes blundering in and ruins everything he touches. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.